Welcome to another episode of My Idaho Friends. As always, I'm your host, Jaime Lima. And as always, huge thanks to Argos Productions, the whole team, Erica, Justin, sweet baby James out in the back, making sure that everything's working well and that, the feed continues. Today, we have a really awesome sauce episode. I think I've been saying that the last couple of episodes. Anyways, it really is awesome sauce. We got Inclusive Idaho in the house. Whitney, Mestelle. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Yes!
That's very good.
Winning from the get-go. And we're very excited to have you here and for you to share the important work that you guys do and the impact that it's making in the community and all the other things in between.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Usually, we have this very loosey-goosey format in which we go back, it's like, hey, where were you 10 years ago? Where are you at right now? And where are you going to be, or where you would like to be, 10 years into the future? But with the very heavy, important work that you guys do, because it's not just you have a full team supporting you. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we're going to have time to get to dig too deep into the past, but if you could just give us a little brief, little something of where Whitney was, 10 years ago.
I'm 29, so full disclosure, we'll just start there. I turned 30 next month. So 10 years ago, I was 19, about to turn 20.
Okay.
So I was a college sophomore probably, and I was a student athlete. I ran track and field, and that's what I was doing. So I was in college, being an athlete and working, and just going to college in general was actually a huge deal for me. When I went to college, I was 6 months. So my senior year of high school, I missed aging out of foster care by 6 months. So my clock was winding down very quickly, and I was able to gain guardianship when I was 17 and a half, which allowed me to do some things and have a little bit of support around FOSFA and financial aid and things like that, which helped a lot. So yeah, I was just being a college student and loving being a student athlete.
And where were you being a college student at?
I went to Missouri Southern, which is also obviously where I ran for undergrad.
There you go.
I'm from Missouri, so born and raised, adopted both times, all Missouri.
Right
and then as soon as college was over, I got out. And I've lived in Denver, I lived in Oregon, I've lived in Denver, Colorado, I've lived in Eugene, Oregon, back to Kansas City, Missouri. I lived in San Antonio, and now I live here. So
wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's different.
Yes.
That's a lot of moving around, and that's quite the different culture dynamics.
Yeah, moving from San Antonio, my husband and I were like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And we had visited Idaho, but when you make a choice to make it your home, you're like, oh, we live here now. This isn't just a 5-day trip and then we're going back home.
Yeah.
And San Antonio is it's the 7th largest city in the country. I think it's in the 80% of Latinx or Hispanic population, and their culture is so deep and so rooted there in everything. And it's just so much a part of what you do in your workspace and the food and the people. Mm-hmm. And then we moved here and we were like, mountains are really cool and we love being outdoors, but that was definitely a big change for us.
It's a little vanilla.
Yes.
Yeah. Not the spicy kind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I do love it here too.
Yeah.
I think I can be very biased. Again, not about me. We're not gonna go down that rabbit hole. But the experience of immigrants coming from a different situation and coming to a new place, and then here is safe, it's clean, and mountains, the outdoors, and all that other stuff. So it's just oh gosh, how could you not love it here? And then you're like, oh yeah, my experience was way different than everybody else's, and it's just something that I need to remind myself. And I was completely unaware when I was younger. So how could you not love it here? It's diversity. There's none.
Right. Literally.
It's just I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I got a little whitewashed. A lot. So working on that, but
yeah.
I think before we go into right now. happy birthday, early happy
Yeah,
birthday.
thanks.
You know,
Thanks.
and I think it's also, I think it's cool, you know, that you highlighted. You know, it's like, yeah, I was 19. Why do I think that needs to perhaps be highlighted? Is because there's not a great deal of, a lot of young people get involved,
Yeah.
but involvement can look different, you know, from whoever lens you're using, right?
Yeah.
You know, involvement can be perhaps somebody, you know, sharing information on social media. Involvement can be being involved in the community and actually directly working with marginalized communities, working in nonprofit work, or bringing awareness to you, like your family and like your employer and things along those lines to move the needle. So I think it is really, really cool because I'm 40,
Okay.
right? So you know, and I'm trying to move the needles, you know, for the nonprofits that I'm involved with. But in my opinion, for somebody, you know, such as young, and that's not like a bad thing, by the way, and just like not being ageist. Is that even a thing?
Yes.
It is a thing, but like I'm not doing that. I promise. You get to turn the needle a whole lot.
Yeah.
You and your team. So, just wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit. Would you please tell us what is Inclusive Idaho and what kind of work do you guys do?
Yeah, so we started, so most people like know our team or myself. The original like community recognition is from when we helped organize the vigil. And so Jesse, who's on our team, and myself were literally in my living room on a Sunday and said like, hey, let's do something because we are really, really upset about George Floyd. We're really upset about the last everything, right, that's been happening in our country, and what's something bigger than we can do than lament in our living room together. And we started putting it out there, like we created the space, started sending it out, started getting phone calls, and then other community organizers who've been here for a really long time were like, hey, you know, let's do this together. And so then the Idaho Coalition and a lot of the folks that work there like jumped on and helped us make sure that we had all the things that we need around like ADA and having seating space, and Ty Simpson jumped on board and helped us do a bunch of things. And so a bunch of other community organizers and the Inclusive Idaho team together, we were able to pull off this really incredible event, right? And I still literally will be walking downtown and someone will be like, hey, I know you. And it's either Inclusive Idaho or the Vigil. Actually happened last week. And sometimes when it's the Vigil, I'm like, wow, it just reminds you that people were so moved. Yeah. Because we're like months in now. And so after the Vigil, my sister and I sat down and said, what is something that we can do that's bigger than this moment? Like, this is a really incredible moment. Like, it was something that brought our community together. People really respected the idea that we wanted to mourn. And again, we continue to hear that people were really moved to start a conversation and change the way they think about things, and to pursue their own like sort of self-education journey. But what is it that we can do that's bigger? Like bigger than just us too. And so that vigil was specifically about mourning Black lives, and elevating the cause of protecting Black lives and valuing Black lives. And so we thought, let's make an organization that not only is working to value and protect and include Black lives, but let's do it for the other folks in our world, in our community, who are constantly being pushed to the fringes. And so when you look at our mission, that's why you'll see like the LGBTQ plus community and BIPOC is also in our mission, and women and refugees, and folks with disabilities, because it's not, when you think about inclusion, it's bigger than me, it's bigger than you. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to create something that we felt like was bigger than us, and just our personal, like, hey, I'm a Black person in America and I want to cement this thing for my people, which isn't bad. Like, there's space for that, and there's folks in our community that do that. But we wanted to create something that we felt like was a little bit more honoring of the word inclusion or inclusive, mm-hmm. which is what we're called. So that's how it started. We wanted to do something that was more permanent, bigger than a moment on the Capitol steps, and something that could garner funding and support, and help us continue to push the conversation around inclusion in our state. And so we've been doing a lot of things. And recently we actually just decided to take a break and sort of reconstruct. And we've been doing that for a little bit, but reconstruct, look at who we are, look at what we're doing. And one of our big goals now and moving forward is to keep the conversation and keep the pulse going on inclusion in all ways in our state. And really feeling like that is the key to making sure that Idaho makes progress in this way, because it's really easy for us to get lost in the very specific heightened moment, right? And then those disappear and we move to the next thing. But our state's really far behind in inclusion. We're so far behind, and our country is far behind, but Idaho is even further behind.
Yep.
It's really frustrating, and one of the reasons why is because it's not seen as important by the majority in Idaho, right? Mm-hmm. So when you ask what we do, we've been doing a lot of things, but who we want to be in the future is an organization that is really focused on community engagement in all the ways in inclusion. We want to be an organization that creates programming and opportunity and closes some gaps for folks that identify in underserved or minoritized communities. We want to be a voice around diversity, equity, inclusion for our businesses and our leading entities, and we want to create social change. That's who we want to be. That's who we've been. But that's what you'll see from us as we move forward from today. And we've been able to create a lot of spaces and opportunities and conversations so far, but we want to be here for the long term, and so that means that we're taking some time right now to look at what that means and what it'll take.
Yeah, I would imagine that taking that time is also what's going to help you and your team and the mission be sustainable.
Yeah.
Because that was a lot.
We've been doing so much, and that's one of the reasons why we're reconstructing, because part of the negative part of doing this work in a space where there's not a plethora of people doing the work. So we have some incredible individuals who have been organizing and doing incredible things in our community, and other organizations that have been doing it for so long. But now the heightened need and the desire for it is so high. And no organization, no individual can do it all. And so honestly, it's us taking a step back and saying no, we're going to do what we know that we can do and what we can do really, really well. Mm-hmm. And honestly saying no to some of the things that are really neat and really cool, but we just don't have capacity, right? And we need to do what we're doing, what we set out to do well.
Wow, that cannot be easy, having that conversation. I was like,
no.
yes, and then boundaries. Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. What are? Well, let's. You guys have now been a nonprofit for how long now?
We incorporated on June 10th of last year, so we're been here for around 9 months-ish or so.
So 9 months. So in the 9 months that you guys have been doing all this continuous work, what is it that you have done as far as, I want to use the right words here, not just programming, but as far as what are the steps that are being taken in order to achieve so many different objectives? I mean, you were mentioning, bringing awareness to employers, so mm-hmm. Hire a more diverse group of people. When you have those with, the inability to get perhaps to the outdoors and do other things, how to make them inclusive. Sorry.
Yeah, so a lot of our, obviously, if you go on our Instagram, you can see things, but a lot of what it takes to build a startup is just working behind the scenes and gathering partners and raising money, mm-hmm. which is taking the most of my time. And so because I serve as the ED, I, place it upon myself, but generally the board and the ED of a nonprofit is our main goals and objectives is to make sure that we stay alive, per se, right? Mm-hmm. And so for Inclusive Outdoors, we've been able, that's one of our programmings, been able to gather some really incredible partners in organizations across the state, like Idaho Rivers United and the Wood River Trails Coalition and many others, climbing gyms. And so creating all of that behind the scenes and then starting to push out programming, and that's taken a while. And COVID has been an unfriendly item in all of this, because when you start something that is so human oriented, face to face, in the midst of this, it's really hard to see how are we going to do this. how are we going to do this thing that we want to do when we're not even allowed to be with people in any capacity? That's significant, you know, and so that's a challenge, but we're moving out of that, and you'll start seeing some programming from us and IRU throughout the summer and moving beyond that, which is Idaho Rivers United. Inclusive counseling is another one of our programs, and that's really just us wanting to close some gaps for the BIPOC and the LGBTQ plus community around making sure they see that there's counselor options of folks who have the training, the knowledge, the skill set, and the desire and the thinking to counsel those folks well, without bias and prejudice and all of the things that you don't want
Right.
when you seek counseling. And so, and then also close the opportunity gap there from a financial perspective. So one of the ways that we'll best serve, besides being that throughway, is providing sliding scale or scholarship to folks who identify as part of those communities and need quality counseling. So that's one of the programs that really, like, once it's all like formed and really close there and done, our biggest role will honestly be providing scholarship. And then also alternative resources. So beyond that, we have an understanding, even though none of us serve. So we're also working with mental health professionals. Like, we have committees for each of the programs that we're launching this year, because sometimes counseling isn't what a person's looking for, right? And so they have to have alternative resources, but closing some gaps there. But yeah, so much of our work is behind the scenes. So sometimes it's really hard. But again, I think what we have done best and what we do best is community engagement. And I know you follow us on Instagram and you follow what we're doing from a social, public-facing perspective. And I don't think that anyone would say that we haven't engaged the community, because and Black History Month was a great example of that. And we really wanted to be the organization that was elevating the importance of Black History Month in our state and our city. And we actually feel like we did that really, really well. Yeah. And even at the end, I looked back and thought, why hasn't anybody done this before? Like, why has there never been Black History Month banners downtown? You know, this month comes around every year. It's a really great opportunity to, like, make Black folks, make folks of the BIPOC community feel welcome in this place. And that's part of what, to me, inclusion is, right? Like, I want folks who look like me, who identify in underserved identities, to come into Boise and feel like they can call this place home, and they have space to operate and live and grow here. Yeah. And that's such a simple thing. That we were able to do, among the many other things that, like, we got so much feedback from folks in the Black community that were just like, this is so incredible. Like, I love it. And even I remember whenever the news interviewed us about it, I saw people stopping to take photos of them, you know, and it's like this really small thing that allows a place to be more inclusive on its own and sort of not necessarily organically, but really there's no confrontation there, right? You're going to walk by it and see it, and it's going to make you feel a little bit better about living here.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I recall I had a friend visit from Brooklyn. She's never been to Idaho, and she stopped by in Boise with her friend as they were making their way to Oregon, and she's gay, and it was during Pride. And she, of course, knows little about Idaho. The little that she does know just didn't necessarily make her feel very much, I wouldn't say welcome, but there was an unease about it. You know, it's like, well, where are you taking me, and who are we hanging out with? And I'm like, I want to see some cool people. I want to do some cool things, see some cool places.
You're like, I'm cool.
You know, and like, you know, and I know I got a tremendous sense of pride when she, like, touches me on the shoulder, and you know, it's like, you know, and it had like all the rainbow flags, you know, downtown. And then we drove. I forget why, but we were going down Harrison Boulevard, and like the medium on Harrison Boulevard had, like, in the neighborhood, like all the rainbow flags and stuff, and it was a big deal for her. And you know, me, of course, not at times being aware of my privilege as a heterosexual man, is just like, my gosh, like, I would have never, of course, you know, like, drinking, you know, it's like, okay, like, learning. But it also made me feel very proud and very happy, you know, and even though I didn't have a single hand on that, I didn't help, you know, it's just like, I get to essentially, like, hop on somebody's great work because it's impactful, and it made a difference, and she was so much more comfortable and so much happier, and had a great 3-day weekend over here.
Yeah.
So she's like hopefully gonna come back and visit again.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why we're reconstructing too, is because so much of what we've done thus far, we've offered programming, we've offered a lot of things in that regard, like webinars and training opportunities, but 90% of what we've done is community engagement, which is tons of labor, but we do want to move into a phase where we're doing programming and things like that, and Black History Month showed us that we have the ability to do community engagement really well, right? And we started inclusive conversations in that month, which is something that will continue forever. And so that will be a huge piece of our community engagement work. But we wanted to create an atmosphere in the month of February in Idaho, and Boise specifically, because that's where we're based,
Right.
That folks hadn't received before or experienced before. And hoping that it motivates folks in the coming months and years to do that same elevating of Black history and other like specific months as well as we move into the rest of the year. And we hope to do the same thing for some other months in partnership with some organizations. And we felt a little more like personally, not responsible necessarily, but just as a team, we were like, hey, we're the only like Black-led, Black-only nonprofit in Idaho. Like, why shouldn't we be leading in this space? We absolutely should. And for things like Hispanic Heritage Month or Native American Heritage Month, we definitely want to elevate those voices in that month, but maybe just partnering with organizations who are led by those folks. And so, like, no brainer, we would partner with the Indigenous Idaho Alliance, or no brainer, or at least attempt to, or no brainer, we would partner with an organization that is Hispanic led, right? And we would still be able to do, because I think part of the inclusion piece here in our state is folks not really understanding, not getting that elevating those voices, that including those folks in literally the space that is being allotted for them is part of the key piece to inclusion.
So all this work in a very short period of time. And committees for different groups partnering with existing organizations that are already making an impact or trying to make an impact. So is the path moving forward being, words have meanings. I almost said like the one shop stop all, oh God. What I'm trying to say is like, would it be to eventually become somewhat of like the nucleus, the hub in which like, we are in need of perhaps these services. We can always lean on Inclusive Idaho, or perhaps it's more something along the lines of like, we are now very clear on our mission statement, and these are our pillars, and this is where we're staying.
It's not to be a one-stop shop, because we've tried to do that, and it's one of the reasons why. So it is to be like, this is who we are. We are community engagement, we are social change, we are our programs, and we are diversity, equity, inclusion. And the reason why is because we've done we want to do it all. We want to do it all, we want to do everything.
Right.
And it's really hard to do anything well when you do that. And one of the things that we've done in that is just give funding to where we know that that good work is being done that we can't do, which is really great. But we also can't just serve as an organization that funds other organizations, because we're brand new, we're a startup ourselves. And so
Right, yeah.
that's not possible. And we've made some funding decisions and some program decisions that were really not even really that difficult, just put us in a place where it was like, okay, but this really, really this matters more than our bottom line. And one of those things was giving COVID relief. And I'm guessing you probably saw that because you follow us on our socials. And that was a hard conversation that I had with myself, because I'm going to try not to get emotional, but next week is the first paycheck I'll ever get from having worked in Inclusive Idaho. And I quit my full-time job and I quit my part-time job to do it. And it's really hard work.
Yeah.
And I work 12 to 16 hours every day. I fit in eating and spending a little bit of time with my husband and working out. But if I'm not doing those things, I'm working. And it's okay. Like, I haven't been upset about it. I haven't been upset about not making money. But it's not lost on me, the reality and the numbers of Black women doing this work at all. Black women working in our country and not getting paid for it. And but anyway, when we gave COVID relief, we just thought we have to do something bigger and more than just providing a space for folks to learn how to be better people around inclusion and treating people the way they should. I mean, that's a very simple way to say it. And looking at our community, and we want to be an organization that's like, what does our community need? And what are the folks who in our community who identify and the groups that we're trying to serve need the very most right now? We're entering the holiday season, and we were deep into the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. So tons of people had lost their jobs. At that point, a lot of families are just really struggling, trying to figure out what the end of this is. When is the end of this? And we were awarded a grant. It was like a community aid grant or something like that. I can't remember the exact name of it. And I went to Whitney and Jesse and Austin, and I said, what if we just give it all away? It's like, I know we need it. Like, obviously. Right. There's 4 of us, and one of us is getting paid part-time. And they were like, absolutely. There was not even a minute of hesitation on our team's part. And that's when I get frustrated with community members, when I get frustrated with folks who disagree with what we do or what our position is, and when folks like the Idaho Liberty Dogs or the Freedom Foundation write things about us or say things about us or spread things about us, it's even more frustrating because I know who the people that I spend time with. I know who Whitley and I know who Jesse and I know who Austin are, and I know who the other organizations and the community members and our volunteers, how much they deeply care about inclusion, and has so little to do with hurting anybody else, right? And everything to do with making sure that every one of us, that Idaho is a place that people want to be and can live and thrive. But anyway, that's one of the things that when you think about like who do we want to be as an organization? What is it that we're doing for our community? And giving away money doesn't seem like, that's not really that hard of a thing to do. But it wasn't about like, hey, we're going to give away money and people are going to like us. It was about, what do the people in our community who we're trying to serve actually need? Right. Right now, today, because that's who we're saying we want to be, right? And more than our programming or more than another like cool thing to watch or an event or opportunity is the communities that we're hoping to serve have been most impacted by the coronavirus. Period, point blank. Mm-hmm. The BIPOC community, the LGBTQ plus community, the disabled community, and women especially, refugees, every single person, every single group in our mission statement has been the most adversely impacted by COVID. And so that was one of the decisions that we made that honestly it's probably the best. I mean, this decision I feel the best about since our organization started. But there was also a hope in that other organizations and folks leading in this work would see and think like, that's what you do. Like, if it is your mission to serve X, Y, and Z, right? That goes beyond like what you have in this very structural way, right? So if I look at fill in the blank nonprofit and maybe they give food, or maybe they help with domestic violence, or maybe they help refugee teens or whatever it is. But we get really, really stuck in sort of like, this is our mission, this is our programs, this is what we do. We don't do anything else besides that. And we wanted to say like, hey, we know this isn't what we do. Like, we know that there's no part that was like, hey, we're just going to give money away all the time when people need it. But looking beyond like your like set goal and mission and actually fulfilling the needs of the people that you're trying to serve, I think is just a huge part of, a huge part of what you should be doing when you start a nonprofit. Yeah. And it's really, really easy to get caught up in like, what is our mission? What is our mission? But looking outside of that, sometimes it's hard, but it's super rewarding. And that was a life-changing experience for me. And granted, it wasn't like my money. Yes, I got to write all the checks because I'm the ED, but which was kind of fun. I mean, we're going to be real about it.
No, but yeah, it's immediate impact.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Boom, boom.
But reading folks' stories and hearing directly from the communities that we serve about how COVID-19 has impacted their lives was just like so heartbreaking. But also, I just felt so privileged to be able to like hear these like intimate or specific details of folks' lives, and they didn't have to share. Didn't have to share with us, so it was really neat.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah, the tears, it's who I am. I literally always cry, but this has just been, the most rewarding thing I've ever done, but also that I just work all the time, and so it sometimes can come out. And
I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine. I try to always not be bringing up stories that involve me too much, but I recall the first time, we met, through James Long, over at Barbarian Brewing, and you guys were getting ready, and I was fortunate enough to just take a glimpse at you guys' business plan for the nonprofit.
Yeah,
it's just massive.
Yes,
it's massive, and I remember as I left, I was like, man, I hope they don't think I'm a jerk, because I was just asking myself on my way out to my vehicle, how will this be sustainable?
Yeah.
And here's the thing, you guys have made it work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get lost in me, and I thought about it, and every time I've been reaching out, like, please get on the show, be on the show, please be on the show.
Yeah.
It's something that I have rehearsed in my head, how I was gonna bring that up, and how glad I am that I was way off and way wrong, because I thought to myself, it's like, they're gonna burn out. And I bring that up because you being honest, authentic, and vulnerable in sharing that very impactful experience, and helping people that needed that help immediately, and just boom, making it happen. And then finally, after all this time, being able to, guess what? Get paid for your work.
Yes.
As you should.
Yeah.
And then some. It hits hard, because it's really easy, and I'm gonna sound old, like in this day and age where, like, you swipe for faces, but you also swipe for information.
Right.
Oh, they did it. That's nice. Oh, like this is what they got going on. Well, maybe I'll attend that one, or maybe I'll share it. And not to, of course, awareness and sharing messages and bringing, the programs available and making them known throughout your network is always an important thing. That's why we use and leverage social media with any sort of business, whether it's non-profit or for-profit.
Yeah.
But it means a lot that you share that, because people do not have the slightest of ideas of how consuming the work is. Because it's not just your physical energy, it's your spiritual energy, it's your mental health, it is your heart, all the feelings that come up and down. I got to help somebody. I didn't get to help this person.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I get to get this program up and running. This volunteer didn't show up.
Yeah.
Oh, we started this new partnership. Now somebody else is changing their mind. Oh, we got new programming yet again that is going to make a great impact. Oh, and here we are, somebody else fighting us tooth and nail for trying to do something that is going to be helpful, not just for one small sector of the community, but overall everybody. Because when women thrive, we all thrive. When people of color thrive, we all thrive. When people that are marginalized in any way, shape, or form, whether it be immigrants or somebody with disabilities and anything in between, we thrive. And it has been a challenge for me, being somebody in the sidelines, being a cheerleader and doing what I can do, because I gotta be honest, I cannot do what you do. I can't. I cannot. I like in the way that you are invested, to me, that's amazing. And I'm not just saying that just to pat you in the back, and not kudos to you, but also kudos to your partner, to your husband, who has to be there shoulder to shoulder with you.
Who's a teacher.
Because he's making it rain at the club,
right, exactly.
And I just want to say this, because I'm hoping that somebody's watching this, and when they do, it starts connecting, those dots. It is exhausting work.
It really is.
And-
And I think, like, for me, not getting paid isn't sort of like this pat on the back, but it's a reminder to folks that, like, I only bring it up because I want folks to know that, like, our commitment to this isn't about, like, a paycheck or, like, people knowing who we are. But, like, we live in a place where it's literally so needed, you know? And when I made the decision, and Whitney and I sat down for a long time and said, like, what does this look like? And what will the sacrifice be, right? And one of the biggest personal sacrifices was me leaving my job. But what will the sacrifice be and how long it would be? And when I left my job, I didn't know, right? How long it would be. But part of inclusion work, part of building community, part of building equity, which is like such a big part of what we're trying to do too, is a lot of sacrifice by the folks who do it. Especially when you're doing it in a place where folks either don't understand or don't necessarily want it. And not when I say folks, I mean majority folks, right? Majority culture in Idaho is not like, yay, inclusion. Like, we're so excited, so thrilled. Right. But that's the thing that is like, well, we need to be here, you know? And I had a conversation earlier today and 2 days ago where I said, I'm not even worried about me leading Inclusive Idaho. Like, when I sit down in a meeting to ask someone for money for our organization, or when I'm writing a grant, or when I'm trying to develop anything that brings dollars in so that we're sustained now and in the future, it's because I just deeply believe that our organization needs to exist. Along with any of the organizations who do any similar type of work in our state. And it's not about us, the people who are part of Inclusive Idaho. It's the notion that we could ever get to a point where we could say, like, with assurance, right? That you and I, in whatever year it is from now, can say, like, Inclusive Idaho, and it be a fact, right? And not just the name of an organization. Like, that's what we want, is we want an Inclusive Idaho, which is why we named our organization that. But it's got to be so much bigger than you and than me, but so much bigger than, like, a personal, like, hey, I want to do cool work, because this is, like, really far from cool work. 99% of the time.
This is dirty.
Yes.
It's
Yeah, and it's really hard and really tough, and but it's also just incredibly rewarding to know of the impact we get to make. Someone asked me, I did a podcast recently, and someone said, like, what's, like, a cool thing that is that has happened that sort of gets you out of bed in the morning? And it's without a doubt, like, the messages or the communication we receive from folks in the community who, one thing that keeps happening in particular, which I think is really interesting, because we know that folks are moving to Idaho, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's not a secret. We all talk about it. But every couple weeks, maybe even just like once a month or a couple times a month, but it's happened enough that it's become a pattern. We'll get a DM or a message from a Black family that moved here, and they'll say, and this has been in probably like the last 6 months, we were looking to move to Idaho, and we saw your organization existed, and it's what made us make the final decision. And that to me is like so huge. I'm gonna cry again.
It's okay.
But it's like, that's what we want. Like, we want to create a place where folks are allowed to be, you know? And allowed to be authentically, and not allowed in, like, hey, we're allowing them in, but, like, a place where they want to live and raise their children, and be able to do whatever they want and fight for the things they want, and exist in the way that they want, without discrimination, without losing their lives, without all of the stuff that we are currently dealing with right now in the news. And so when people ask me what gets me out of bed, that gets me out of bed every day. That's the thing, because I really want, if I'm gonna call this place home, I really want it to be home. And I don't want to live in a place, and I don't want folks who identify in minoritized communities to live in a place where they're always looking to leave because it's not home.
Right. Shallow question, then deep dive question, and then shameless plug.
Okay.
For self-promotion.
Yeah.
All right. So shallow question. Is there anything that you would have done differently with the nonprofit and your work up until this point?
Oh, for sure. There's like 1,000 things.
Is there one or is there one or
yes.
two that like, you know?
So yeah, starting a nonprofit's really hard, and there's like 1,000 rules. So that's always like a factor, but I think just for me personally, leading the organization, like being the face of the organization, I would have taken the time to ask more questions, spend more time with folks who identify as LGBTQ plus and some of the other communities that we're serving. And that's actually been a really good learning point for me, just being held accountable for our mission. And I think we could have made we could have avoided a few potholes if we would have been a little more patient in the launching, just trying to do everything immediately. And that's okay. Like, you learn, and you have hard conversations, and you move through that. But that's probably a big thing. It's just going like a hair slower. But it's really hard to, like, in the moment, do that, right? Because you're just really passionate and you just want to like see all this change. And it's really easy to like sort of see your blind spots, or see your own bias, see your own blind spots, or see your own lack of understanding or lack of knowledge about anything. And so that's probably the one thing that I would say from a very personal perspective too, that I would have done differently.
Cool.
And then just learn a little more about starting a nonprofit.
That's a great answer. Deep dive question. And if for some reason you don't have the answer, that's fine
good.
too. Based on everything you have shared right now and everything you have talked about, all your goals, the things that are being accomplished, the things that need to perhaps be put on pause for a little bit.
Yeah.
Getting funding, getting the community engagement core of the nonprofit, you know, and have it to be where it needs to be. For how long can Whitney be doing what she's doing at the pace that she's doing it right now?
Oof, not much longer, I will tell you that. And it's probably days, to be honest, which is a part of the big reason why we're taking a break. But my board has been really supportive of me, of our organization. My board is the reason why I'm getting paid, to be frank, because they basically said, you have to get paid. Like, and I said back, but, right? Which is not the right answer. And even as I said it, I knew it wasn't the right answer, but it's my self-progress, but not a lot longer. And it was me realizing that, like, the pace that I'm going, our inability as an organization to, like we have this foundation, but it's like wobbly still, because we keep piling on and we keep saying yes. And our capacity is the exact same as it was the day one.
Right.
And so being a leader is really hard. It's really hard. And definitely, honestly, this break right now is the toughest decision I made as far as our organization goes. And it doesn't even mean that I won't be working. It just means I won't be taking like new meetings. And I'll be spending a lot of time in the first part of my day doing like strategy and development and stuff like that honestly, frankly, I haven't had a lot of time to do. But when you ask me like this pace that I'm at, a week. This break is like that needed. It's that necessary. And it's one of the reasons why I get so emotional about being paid. Not so much that I'm not eating, right? Obviously. It's not about that. It's just more so that feeling like that there is a level of sustainability in our organization. Like getting to a point where I don't wake up and say like, are we going to be here next month? Are we going to be here in 6 months? And being okay with the idea that I don't have every dollar figured out right now today. And just also feeling like that, like, even this one paycheck, like even if I didn't get paid in April, like there's some monetary reward for all of the hours and all of the work. Feels really, really cool. And also just makes me emotional too, because that ability to be paid comes from our community, period, point blank. Yeah. All of our dollars, all of our grant dollars have come from organizations that are really involved locally, like the Pride Foundation, Idaho conservation voters, the Women's Charitable Foundation. You know what I mean? So it's not, it's folks who are right here, like the same people who we like hang out with and grocery shop with and do work in the community with. And it's just, it's a really interesting feeling to know that like this money that I'm getting, you know, and the ability to continue to do this work at a better pace is literally coming from the folks that I call neighbors and my friends. So it's really cool.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing, for being open, for
Yes.
being you, and all the work that you do. Being a leader is no joke. You get all the blame, and you when things go wrong, and you give all the accolades when things are going right, and the accolades go to your team, which you
Yes.
continue to mention. So shout out to them too.
Yeah, Whitney and Jesse and Austin are the best humans,
Yeah,
for sure.
and there's not enough time for me to put into like a short couple of sentences to tell you, like, you know, not it is hard work, and it is very thankless, it is continuous, and it's also generational.
Yes.
Just because it's new, it doesn't mean that it hasn't been going on in other places throughout all of our country, and then some. And to see the disconnects and the reconnects, and having somebody like you and your team jump in and then being able to do what you do in such a short amount of time is nothing short of amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
to everybody in Inclusive Idaho. And my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks. If you're watching, again, Inclusive Idaho, where can we find you?
Instagram, Facebook, online. We're relaunching our website on the 24th, though.
When you're watching this, it will be on YouTube. You'll see the link for anything and everything Inclusive Idaho. Please learn. Please get involved. The resources are out there. There's really no excuse. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, Idaho, get out there and be kind to somebody. Cheers.